Hi, Louise.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm all right. When, when we read the chapters that are personal stories, they're
Mm,
always really upsetting. I mean, the whole book it's, no joyride for sure. But
no.
anyway, we're talking about Relinquished by Gretchen Sisson. We are on two chapters. Camille is the first one. Stephanie is the second one.
Yeah. And you get a feel for what these mothers are going through. I mean, I feel like she must have verbatim taken their notes or they wrote her their
Oh,
stories
right. I
about her
think, yeah, we
told.
talked about
Yeah.
that last
I love how
last
they're
episode.
like in it. Well, she had three children
And she was an adoptee.
and an
Um,
adoptee. And
and yeah, divorced mother of three
yeah, and they
when she became pregnant.
yeah, she became pregnant and could not keep this little boy. She had a boy and she couldn't keep him because she ended up, which she didn't know in the middle of it, she had postpartum, not just depression, but psychosis, right?
Psychosis, where she had violent thoughts and she didn't want to tell anybody.
No. Well,
Um,
she was scared if she told someone they'd come and take all her children,
right, right.
which is another thing about being poor and being, she's black. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why, like, maybe not everybody would relate to this, but I can't call for help because someone will judge me.
Right. Well, and that in the Black
Yep,
community that happens often.
it does. And so she didn't know who to reach out to for her help with her child.
And then she started looking into adoption online.
Yeah.
Which also, she was with her child for 6 months
Yeah.
when she did, and then the thoughts weren't going away, and so she decided to check out adoption. But then she felt like that was hard too because people don't want to. It says people want to go to the hospital and come home with a
Yeah.
baby, even if they didn't give birth. The bidding goes down because he wasn't brand new.
I thought I was hoping you were going to read that line. The
Yes,
the
she's like, I don't
bidding
know if
goes
that's
down.
right, if that's the right way to say it, but that's what she learned. That was her truth about it. It really, when things are stated in such, uh, you know, ways like that, it's harsh but true.
It's harsh but true. Yeah, and she was looking for a black family, and that was actually very hard to come across for this private adoption, in private adoption. And she said something,
Well, she did,
um,
yeah, she found a family that were white but had adopted a black child.
child, but
So she felt at least her child would have a sibling of the
yeah,
same race.
I thought this was interesting because she said I had been looking for a black family, and I said if they couldn't find a black family for him, I wouldn't do it. Not a lot of black families do private adoption, I guess maybe because it's so expensive or it's just our beliefs.
Hmm.
We've talked about that before culturally, how different cultures take care of each other more and in the family more. And so I thought,
Right.
yeah, so she did find a couple and it was an open adoption, which she was stressed about.
Right. To some extent, it was an
Yeah,
open
right.
adoption until the
Hmm.
adoption was finalized, and
Oh
then
my
she
God.
basically was ghosted.
She was ghosted with her, and she thought she'd always keep up and she could move. She had dreams of what, moving close maybe with her three
Hmm.
children. They talked that maybe that would happen. It was all
Yeah.
like shining her on, if that's how you say it. And then,
And then she said she got frustrated and, went off a little bit. And this is not what it was supposed to be. And that conflict severed the relationship. It's almost like they were
yeah.
pushed her to that point, knowing
Can you
that would
imagine?
happen.
And also she said something here. I feel like I was so she got pregnant again, married the man that she was pregnant with. She came clean to her doctor, putting the horrible name on
About
it.
the psychosis. Yeah.
Coming, and then said, I feel like I was brave for doing what I did because I was going through this and she didn't want to hurt her child and be indifferent to a baby and going through the psychosis. So she was brave to look for something to help him, but not knowing she'd forever lose him.
Right. And then she did say, right towards the end of the chapter, I feel like I wish that I had picked a different family.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I was just thinking 6 months old, that would be, and I don't know. I don't know. These are hard choices. It's hard reading. Then we get into Stephanie, who's our next young
So
lady that wants.
Stephanie was 29,
Mm.
and living in the West Coast, working in the film business and far away from her family who were Catholic, and she just
Mm-hmm.
didn't have the support. That Stephanie really came down to money,
It was
uh,
financial. Yeah.
financial. Like even to the point she was like, well, I wouldn't even be able to get the baby
Oh,
home from the hospital because I don't have wouldn't have a
a
car
car
seat. I can't
seat.
afford to buy a car seat. She had
Yeah.
a lot in here, and because she ultimately became kind of she spoke at
Mm-hmm.
conferences, and really kind of has become
Well,
more
yeah.
she was
Yeah.
pro-life because she was Catholic. Now she's pro-choice.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah,
And
it doesn't.
the main thing that hit me out of this is until you have a child, you don't know how you're going to feel about your child completely, especially when you're going through the ambivalence of fear. And it's not like you've planned it, in your marriage or whatever you're doing. But motherhood is motherhood. You have this child, and then you're in this whole steam ball rolling thing. And that's when you're preyed upon the most. I mean, that's
Well,
really the
right, and
situation.
she went and met with a social worker. Also, the father of the baby's father, who was black, was
Hmm.
not like he wasn't. She didn't think he'd totally be on
There.
board.
No,
But she said the social worker really like didn't really help her imagine what it could be like to be a parent.
no, it was only
And
helping or the opposite.
only helping like find the
Hmm.
families and look through these books and do this whole thing, not
Yeah.
touching on, well, if you decide to keep your baby, even though she kept saying, oh, it is your baby, but she didn't really
Yeah,
give
kind of
her a
like a
picture of like,
disclaimer.
oh, we could get a car seat donated and there's this
Right.
service and there's that service. None of that,
Which there
which
are these
shows you the
services.
agenda of the agencies.
Yeah. And she brought up something I never knew about. Maybe you did. I cradle care, which is
I didn't know about that.
no. So it said after she was born, I had the option to do, she had a little girl, cradle care, which the agency actually encouraged. Their belief was that they wanted the child to stay with a third party so the mother could recover and make a decision once she was out of the hospital, once her hormones balanced out. Because I'm sure they've had a lot of people give up a baby, take back the baby, all sorts of
Yeah.
things. So they have this thing called cradle care, which is only another trauma to the baby, by the way, because you're going to an in-between place. But I didn't even know about that. That was new to me, completely new.
And she talks about when the baby was born, she didn't understand
No.
just how connected she would feel and how much that would mean. It wasn't until she was born that she really realized what the loss it was, what a loss, and
Yeah.
then prior to the birth, it's like open option, yes, blah, blah, blah. But then signing the papers and knowing that the openness agreement really meant nothing if they didn't follow through. There it is, the
Right.
control of the adoptive parents.
So none of it's so this is another thing that's new to me a little bit through this book and just through our podcast. I didn't really realize none of this is enforceable.
Right. Yeah,
It's
I
just
didn't know that
really
either.
kind of like BS. It's not like a state done thing where it's enforceable. It's just open adoption and like you can't enforce it. It's just whatever's on paper doesn't mean anything, which is surprising to me. I don't know.
And
I
then
guess it shouldn't
I didn't
be.
like this part. This was
Hmm.
another thing I highlighted. Oh, and this is terrible but I don't really love her name, but I can't exactly say
Oh,
anything. We'd had a conversation. I thought we'd agreed on a name together, and that's the one I gave her on her original birth certificate. But then they changed it. That was another loss. I guess in the scheme of losses, it's a small one.
yeah. And we
Um,
we know how that's not a small one because we are actually adoptees and it's a big thing your whole life.
and then she also found out that some of the private feelings she shared with the adoption agency, they then turned around and shared
Oh,
with the parent of the adoptive parents. Like,
right. It was almost like counseling sessions.
right.
So she would be honest and say things, and they were being reported so that on paper, she would be someone they could disqualify as being a good mother.
Right.
That was disgusting. I mean, there's so many eye-opening things in this. And then she also said if she, this is where we were talking about financial. I used to joke that if I'd been pregnant in Canada, I probably would have parented. And it's kind of
Right.
true. If I had help and better health insurance, maybe things would have been different. And there's a footnote. This observation is possibly true. In 2017, Canada had fewer than 1,000 private domestic adoptions. When controlled for population, the rate in the United States is 2.5 to 3 times higher.
Yeah.
So that, you know,
I mean, here she does say, she really, I guess, is kind of sounds sort of activist,
yeah,
and I think there are systematic problems in adoption. There's too much money in adoption. In my case, I think I lucked out, but that doesn't negate that it was all luck. As a culture, we say adoption is a way of saving a child who's unwanted. I've met too many women who've relinquished to believe that. I feel like if we want to help kids, we would be fixing that system and we would be having paid maternity leave. And then she says that about
yeah,
Canada.
yeah,
That's the lead up to Canada.
yeah. And then at the very end, she says, this got me because it affects us too. It's all just very complicated. Too often, birth mothers don't talk about it. And when adoptees talk about it, they get relegated to like, oh, you must have had a bad
You must
experience.
have had a bad experience. Yeah,
And
I highlighted that too.
yeah,
And
and that is
yeah,
kind of what's true. And I'm always,
even when I talk about it with acquaintances or,
yes,
that seems to be the general thought. Well, most people are happy or, like not knowing what they're saying.
I think it's powerful when we have had like I was with a group and I have had a good experience. A very good adoption. And I'll tell people, yeah, but I still have all these things and it's a huge thing. Then they are like, oh, I didn't know. I mean, I think it just makes me mad that adoptees are always kind of, if you're upset or angry about any of the things going on, you're just this, oh, you're this person. You're pushed over
Right.
here.
It's
It's,
an uncomfortable, it's too uncomfortable of a topic, but thank you for
thank you.
books like this that are in people's faces.
Yeah.
We have to reconcile this as a society. We just do.
Yeah, we
Has to be
do.
done. No matter how long it takes or how many people we bug, has to be done.
Yeah. I think we are. We're headed that direction, just a little bit maybe slower than we like.
Yeah. Well, we have Ryan coming on.
Yeah, we have Ryan.
Ryan
Oh,
has an interesting story. Did you?
and
Oh, yes, next week. We are,
next,
yes, go ahead, say it,
I
Louise.
think the next week we're doing the section 3, just 3. The family made heartbreak possible. My heartbreak made possible, right? That's pretty in-depth chapter. Yeah.
Yep,
So
let's do
check.
it.
So section 3, chapter 3.
Yep.
We'll see you in
Because
a minute.
we do have people reading along with us. So,
Yes.
yep, I'll see you in a minute.
See you in a minute.